Hey, welcome. Today we're going to do something a little different. We're taking a journey, not to some far-off place, but, right inside our own minds. And we'll be using some incredible insights from the writer Jimmy Perez to kind of build a map to our own inner world.
So let's just dive right in with a question that seems so simple on the surface, but it's probably one of the biggest we can ever ask ourselves. Take away the job title, the family roles, all the things you do, and who are you really? It's a question that gets right to the very heart of, well, everything. And this quote just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? Perez lists all these hats he wears. Father, husband, son. We all have a list like that. But then he drops this bombshell. He isn't really any of those things, at least not 24/7. He points out, I am not a father when I am with my wife alone. I am not a husband when I'm playing with my children. They're just roles, you see, not the sum total of who we are. Okay, so that brings us to our first stop on this journey, awakening. It's really all about peeling back those layers, all those labels the world stuck on us, to remember who we were underneath it all. You know that feeling? Perez calls it a lifelong tug of war inside of us. It's like this constant back and forth between two different sides of yourself. Maybe you think of it as light and dark, or spirit and ego. Whatever you call it, that inner tension is a huge clue that there's something much, much deeper going on. To really get this idea, Perez uses this fantastic metaphor. Think of yourself as a car. Our body, our flesh, that's the vehicle. It gets us around. It might be a sports car or a beat-up sedan, but either way, it's temporary. It's going to break down eventually. But the soul? The soul is the driver, and the driver is eternal, ready to continue the journey long after that one car is left behind. And that right there is the heart of awakening. It's having that sudden realization that underneath all these layers of armor we've built up over the years, our original, authentic self is still in there. You know, the one who, as Perez says, cried easily and loved without hesitation. So, once we start to wake up to this stuff, we're faced with a pretty big choice. Do we stick with what's comfortable, or do we choose to grow? And as you can probably guess, real growth almost always means we have to start choosing the hard things. For a lot of us, Perez writes, there's a breaking point. It's that moment when the way things are just isn't working anymore. It feels like you're losing that inner battle we talked about. But here's the thing. This isn't a failure. It's an invitation. It's the universe tapping you on the shoulder and saying, hey, it's time for a real change. So the path through that challenge kind of looks like this. First, you have to be brutally honest and just identify that breaking point. Then, instead of running away from that inner struggle, you lean into it, you embrace it. And finally, you have to commit to a really deep, drastic change, not just moving the furniture around. Now, this next part might sound a little weird at first, but stick with me. One of the best tools we have for getting through those hard things is doubt. Yeah, doubt. So let's talk about how we can flip the script and turn it from a weakness into a superpower. Perez brings up this quote from Voltaire, and it's so perfect. I mean, think about it. The wisest people throughout history, they almost never gave you a straight answer. They told stories, they used parables, they asked more questions. And why is that? Because questions spark an awakening in you, while easy answers can just shut the whole journey down before it even starts. So here's how Perez sees it. Doubt isn't the opposite of faith. Not at all. Instead, picture a balancing scale. On one side, you've got knowledge. That's the tool of our physical self, how we build things and survive in the world. On the other side, you have faith. That's the tool of our spirit, the unseen thing we rely on when knowledge just isn't enough. Doubt? Doubt is the space between them. It's the fertile ground where real growth actually happens. Which, of course, brings the whole thing right back to you. What are the big, scary questions you've been avoiding? About your life, your purpose, your beliefs? Because according to this way of thinking, that's exactly where the treasure is buried. All right, so we've started to awaken, we've decided to face our challenges, and we're learning to use doubt as a tool. The next piece of the puzzle is understanding the absolutely incredible power of our own focus. I love this because it's such an honest admission from Perez. He says he'd heard that phrase, we create our own reality, for decades, but it was just words. Then, one day, it wasn't. It just clicked. The idea that where your attention goes, your energy flows, and your reality is built, suddenly became this simple, mind-blowing truth for him. And the engine for all of this is what Perez calls intention, the silent architect of your inner reality. Now, this isn't just about wishing for a new car. It's about consciously, deliberately choosing where you place your mental and emotional energy. That choice, that single act, is what builds your entire experience of life, brick by brick. And that brings us to our final, and honestly, maybe the most important part of this whole thing, the simple, practical act of reconnecting with that true inner self we've been working so hard to uncover. You know, in a world that is screaming for our attention 24/7, we have to fight to create some quiet space for ourselves. And here's a really critical distinction to make. Solitude is not the same as loneliness. Loneliness is a painful feeling. Solitude is a choice. It's the positive act of giving yourself the silence you need to finally hear your own inner voice again. Perez offers such a beautiful way of looking at this reconnection. He describes prayer not necessarily as asking for something from an outside source, but as an intimate internal conversation. It's a sacred act of peeling back the layers of the self to finally connect with what's really there. So there you have it. This is your toolkit for the journey inward. It starts with awakening to who you really are. Then you embrace the hard things because that's where the growth is. You use doubt as a compass, not an anchor. You remember that your focus shapes your world. And finally, you make time to reconnect with your own mind and spirit. Look, this isn't just some interesting theory. The real question is, what are you going to do with it? Where do you go from here? Which one of these ideas really jumped out at you? Whatever it was, that's your starting line. And we'll end with this powerful thought from Perez. We can talk about these ideas all day long, but real truth can't be pinned down by logic. It can't be fully explained in a video. It can only be experienced. So the final challenge really is to close this screen and go out and live it. Your journey starts right now.